Everybody doing good? Good. It's good to see you. Look good. Let me grab my Bible. Today, I want to just say this ahead of time. Hey, it's going to be a lot of information in a short amount of time. It's what we call Vision Sunday. And so if you call Collectivist Church home, you're going to kind of gain some insight of where we're going. If you don't call Collectivist Church home, maybe it's your first time with us, or you've been here once before, you're going to hear a lot about what God's done here and where God's taken. It's a good time to kind of investigate who we are as a church. You can be little secret spies. You don't care. And you'll hear our heart. You'll hear our heart. And I want to say this to you, too. Today's message, if you're not a believer, you can apply these same God-given principles in different areas of your life, and you're going to see God move whether you believe or not. And I want to encourage you to do so. I'm going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our church a little bit and where God's calling us. But there's going to be some real practical ways I'll point out to you that this could be a betterment for your family. This could be a betterment for your city and other things as well. So today is what we call, put it back up there, Vision Sunday. Vision Sunday, I'm going to read a passage. This won't be on the screen. But I think it just sets up the precedence of today. I'm going to be in the book of Matthew, which is the first book in the New Testament. And it's a gospel story, meaning that this is someone who had eyewitness account with Jesus. And they're telling a story that Jesus told as what's called a parable. And a parable is basically a way to explain something that's a kingdom principle within the context of our earthly understanding. So they would show a lot of parallels. And this is what Jesus says. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted or invested in them property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money. So to one he gave 5 pieces of investment, whatever you might want it to be, because it's a parable, right? 5 talents, and then, sorry, I just lost my place. The man who received the 5 talents went and at once and put his money to work and gave 5 more. Sorry, I skipped over something. All right, to one he gave 5 talents. There we go, money. Don't forgive me, right? Good. To another he gave 2 talents, and to another he gave 1 talent, right? Then the man who had received the 5 talents went at once, put his money to work, and it gave 5 more. He invested his money, and it came back with 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents did the same. They invested, and they got 2 more. But the man who received only 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid the master's money. After a long time, the master came back, returned to settle his accounts with him. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the master 5 more. The master said, I entrusted or invested you with 5 talents. I see that you've gained 5 more. The master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. He's saying, I gave you a little, and you were faithful with a little, so now I'm going to give you more, not to reward you, but because I know you can be trusted. Does that make sense? Okay. So many people think that God's rewarding people, and he's not. He's just trying to find people he can trust. Continue on. We'll preach there later. And then he says, let me back up. It said, trust me with God. His master replied to that. The man who had 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2. See, I gave you 2 more. You invested in me, and I invested what you invested in me into whatever way he invested it, and it came back. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things, and so I want to put you in charge of many things. Again, not to reward you, but because I can trust you. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew you were a hard-working man, harvesting where you're not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. Meaning he does more than his share in order to make his living. And it goes on, and he says, I know that. So I was afraid. So I went out, I didn't invest your talent, I hid it in the ground. So here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I harvested where I not sowed and gathered where I not scattering seed. So you know I worked hard for what I invested in you. Well, then you should have put my money then in a bank on deposit with the banker, so that when I return, I would receive the investment back, but with interest. It says, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. It's an interesting word of God, right? So Jesus tells us a story. I'm not going to expand on it now. We're going to preach on this, but I want you to keep that in mind as we talk today. So today is Vision Sunday. I feel like we need a joke after that. There's a guy, and he died, and he went to heaven, and he Peter's like, hey, you get in. Don't worry about that. You receive Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior. You believed in your heart He was Lord and confessed with your mouth. Like, this is yours. But you do know the things you did on earth. Like, we get to see some of that in heaven, right? And the guy's like, yeah, I know that. It's like, so, like, we got to find out where your mansion is. We got to find out where all your crowns are, where your jewels are. So I'm going to look through this book. I'm just going to find the things that you did that were good merit, that were honorable, that were, good service to the kingdom. And he stands there and he's flipping for a while, and he's kind of embarrassed. St. Peter's kind of embarrassed for the guy who's standing there, because he's thinking, like, this guy's about to get to heaven, but I don't know where he's going to live, right? Like, I don't know what he's going to do. And so God looks at me and says, is there anything in your life that you did that was of good merit or honorable? And he goes, well, yeah, there was one time where there was this, I was at this bar, and this lady was there, and she went to leave, and this, like, biker gang pulled up, and they started to harass her. And I didn't like that, but I sat where I was. She tried to go outside. They kept harassing her. So finally, I got up the courage, or somehow had the courage, And I went outside, and I kicked over all their bikes, and I threw the main guy down to the floor, and I yanked out his nose ring, and I said, you leave her alone. And the guy was like, he was like, amazing. Very honorable. So I'm looking, when did this happen? He goes, about 2 minutes ago. You'll get it later. I'm like, oh, he died. I got it. All right, so this is what I said last week. Not last week, last year. Sorry. Last year, 2021, this Sunday, I stood up here and said, our potential is unmeasurable, but our future reality is yet to be determined. So what it means is your potential, you as a church, you as a believer, you as a father, you as a mother, you as an individual, your potential is unlimited. And what I mean by that is not like the Limitless pill, not like a movie thing here, right? What I mean by that is Ephesians 3:20 says, now unto him who is able to do far more abundantly than anything we ask or imagine, to him be the glory. Like, that's the God you serve. He also says that you as believers, filled with the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, can do greater things. He has an investment that he's planted within you that he longs to see you use, and so your potential is unlimited. But very few of us see people's future as actually what their potential is. And if you're with me, maybe you're with me on this. I have 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And the greatest joy in my life is to see them reach their fullest potential. And the thing that hurts my heart the most is when I know they're better than something they're doing. Not when they do something wrong, because they do something wrong, but when I look at them and go, you know better than that. I know you. You have more in you, and yet you're choosing in this moment to go below that which you can be. And I have to think our Heavenly Father thinks about how much potential is in us, how much He's given us, and has at times stand back and go, man, I'm not mad. I'm not punishing you. But I know you can do better. I know you have more in you. And see, I think as a church, so that's for you individually, as a church, our potential is unlimited, but also our future is unknown. But I think our potential and our future is found in our purpose. And if you don't know our purpose, here's our purpose. We are to rescue the lost, encourage the found, and to equip them all. See, our reality we found when we actually invest into this purpose. So I'm going to give you a word for this year. Every year, not like in a, I don't know how to explain it. I just ask God, what's a common thread for the year? And this is just what I feel. Year 1, we talked about foundations. Last year, we talked about testifying. This year, I think God's telling us as a church that we need to invest. Now, some of you are like, this is a money talk. This is not a money talk. I'm not taking up your money afterward. We'll have an offering, but that's not what it's about. I'm talking about investing in your cities. Investing in your relationships. And investing into the Word. Investing into worship. Investing into your personal faith. So that's for you personally, but also for us as a church to learn to invest into our cities. To learn to invest into the relationships in this house. To invest our time in the Word of God. Invest ourselves in worship. To invest ourselves in our individual faith, but also in our public faith. To invest in the family, if you believe that. To invest in the kingdom. And to invest into the future. Now, what is investment? This is just the definition of investment. Is to commit money or resources in order to earn and generate a return. That's important. We don't do it just to give it money. We do it with the expectation that if we give it, there will be some return. That story we just read, obviously the owner expected when he came back not to receive what he had given, but to have a greater return. It was an investment. 2000, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number, but it's pretty close to this, 2012, 13, maybe 14 at the latest. A buddy of mine named Ben Wright, I know Ben, he helped plant Collectivist. He's in San Antonio for work right now, he'll be back in a few months. He got Tuesday we used to drive and go get barbecue. So if you want to know where the good barbecue is in Alabama, let me know. I've been to every one of them. And we're driving one day, and he looks at me, and Ben's a little younger than me, and a little bit more tech savvy than me, and he goes, "Hey Ben, have you?" It's going to get a confusing story because both named Ben, but it'll be okay. He looks at me and says, "Ben, have you ever considered investing in Bitcoin?" And I was like, "I don't even know what you just said. Like the words you just said, they made no sense to me, right? Like, what is Bitcoin? You put a coin in, and you go to a dentist? I can help you out, bro. I know somebody." He's like, "No, Bitcoin, it's like a digital currency, a cryptocurrency." It's like, man, you're saying things I don't even understand. I was like, "Explain it to me." I'm not that smart, but I'm not dumb, right? I'm like, "Explain it to me." So he starts to explain to me, and the more he explains, the more I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I was like, so it's digital, but there's like money in the bank to support it?" He's like, "No, none." I was like, "Okay, cool. So like, there's like property somewhere or something?" And they're like, "No." I was like, "So like, if somebody turned off their computer, you would lose everything?" And he's like, "Kind of." And I was like, "I'm not investing in that." He's like, "I just think it's going to be a smart investment long term." Well, I did not invest in it. To this day, I feel like Ben Wright did. I know he did, and I don't really know what that means, but I do know if I would have invested, Collectivist Church wouldn't be in this building. We'd own this whole block. That's all I know, right? So when Ben Wright gets here, I'll say, "How much money you got in Bitcoin?" And then ask me if he's tithing it. No, I'm just joking. But an investment, right? So I couldn't expect today to have the return of what Bitcoin would return if I would have invested in 2013 if I didn't invest in 2013. It's such a silly concept. Like we expect to get more of something that we never gave anything to. It's like it's like retirement, right? Like some of y'all your companies invest into retirement, and then you look at how little it is, but you had the opportunity to match it so that it would grow even greater, right? And you're like, "This doesn't look like much." Well, because it's not nobody's just gonna give you the money. Like it's all gonna be determined on your investment. And so my question for us is this: are you and I placing our bets, or are we investing? Now, here's what I mean. Here's what it is. Just so you see, next slide for me. Betting is a gamble, right? Betting is, I'm going to put the money down. I know that it's up in the air, right? Unless you got like a secret end with a horse, let me know. Betting is something where you just say, "Here's some money. I hope it works out. If it does, it'll pay off. If it doesn't, it doesn't." There's no more commitment there. Investing is a commitment. Anybody like Shark Tank? Anybody watch the show Shark Tank? Just me? Okay, cool. That made me feel real at home here, y'all. Shark Tank is full of investors who invest into companies. And when they invest into companies, they don't just give them their money. One of the things they promise them, they're like, "Well, what are we getting out of this? If we're giving you so much, like you get a share." That's what they say. Like you get an investor. I'm going to make this mine because if you succeed, I succeed. Can I tell you something? God's looking at you and saying, if you succeed, the kingdom succeeds. Like if I invest in you and you invest in the things of this world, I'm invested in you because I want to see it all the way through. Amen. Good. So, what are we going to do? I think as a church we need to invest. 2 Corinthians 9:6. Whoever sows sparingly also reaps sparingly. It just makes sense. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. We put it this way at Collectivist. We say that we're moving from consumers to contributors. Now, our first 2 years have been interesting. Our first year was 100% foundation. Like, we love Jesus. We see this early model of a church that we think God is longing to restore, and we want to be a part of that. And then last year was kind of like the building part. Like, what does that actually look like outside of good people who love people? And now we see some of those processes in place. And now this is the year to actually invest in that. So we said things last year. We were like, we're moving from consumers to contributors. And now it's time to invest into that vision. So, anyways, if you got your worship guides when you came in, there's some notes page in there. You might already be taking notes. There's also a connection card we'd love you to fill out. On that notes page, we have 4 questions. What does God want me to know? Why does He want me to know it? What does He want me to do? And what will be the results? God might tell you something different today. I'm going to tell you right now that, not what I say. I'm going to tell you, kind of when I was processing today's message, what I think God wants us to know. I think the first thing God wants you to know is when we're looking at the word invest, we need to learn to invest through encouragement. Invest through encouragement. Again, our mission statement is rescue the lost, encourage the found. Encourage the found. Hebrews 10:24-25, and let us consider, look at that word consider, we'll come back to that, how we, the church, may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, we'll come back to that, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. Encouraging one another all the more as you see the day approaching. saw the writer wrote there, the first thing he wrote was consider how. Consider how. He didn't say, hey, listen, just blindly invest. He's saying take some consideration. Think about how you want to invest it. Make it something that you do, not just out of a whim, but wisely. He's saying put intentionality behind it, invest wisely. And then he said the second thing, he says, not meeting up together. Put that up there. Not giving up meeting together. And when he says that, he's saying, listen, there's some encouragement that needs to happen, and it needs to happen with you encouraging other people individually. I'm going to tell you something I did not know. When we planted Collectivist Church, it was 4 weeks before COVID started. I know, that's the word we're not supposed to say, right? 4 weeks before COVID started. And I did not know that God was calling us to create a church that was ideal in the midst and post-COVID. I didn't know it. I knew where the future of the church was going, and we want to be ahead of that so that we can help usher in the presence of God, second comings, and people who know Jesus and all those things. But I didn't know, and this is what I mean by that. We call ourselves a decentralized church. We're in missional communities. Our pastoring, our missions, our discipleship all happens in these missional communities, 13 of them across multiple counties. And this decentralized model was put in place before we were ever divided and isolated, so that we could grow in encouragement together. That's what Psalms 19:14 says, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. I don't talk much about coming down heavy on things, but there's one thing that we just can't let take root in this house. It's because I care about this church. And one of them is things that we speak, and more specifically things called gossip. And you're like, oh Lord, I love to gossip, right? Guys, you do it too. Don't think just your wife does it. Well, that's a lot of girls laughing. I don't understand. I'm sorry, guys. Apologize. Forgive me. Gossip is a poison. Can I just tell you? If it takes root in something, it can topple kingdoms. And it'll tear your family apart. It'll tear your friends apart. It'll tear your church apart. It is a seed that if it's sown, it's hard to control once it's planted. James 1:36 says this, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Saying, if I did all these things for the kingdom of God, if I did all these things in the name of Christianity, yet I couldn't keep a rein on my tongue, I couldn't quit talking bad about my sister in Christ, my brother in Christ, I couldn't quit tearing people down, people who are next to me, people who don't know Jesus, people who do know Jesus, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And some of you have been hurt by church because of that. And I want to say sorry. I didn't do it. Don't blame me. And if I did do it, I'm really sorry. But it can't happen. It just can't. We won't stand for it here. There's very few things that are kind of non-negotiables within our church. Like everybody's welcome, but we just don't gossip on each other. We don't do it. We don't do it. Why? Because I don't want to see Satan's plan of destruction take root in our house. And it's start mainly through how we speak about each other. So anyways, off that tangent. So encouraging all others, yeah, it's words, but it's not always words. Often it is actions, right? The burdens that we face aren't ones you're supposed to face alone. Did you know that? God never created you to have to carry all the weight that you have alone. There's some burdens that need to be given to God, some burdens you have to face. But I want you to read this with me. Galatians 6:2. Paul writes to the church of Galatia, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. He said to the church, yes, there's some burdens that you need to just lay at the feet of Jesus. There's some burdens that you have to face. I'm sorry, you do. But there's many burdens that we are called to, in communal living, be able to share with each other. Paul is saying, listen, help shoulder each other's burdens, and you will find that you fulfill what's called the law of Christ. What is that law? Here it is. In John chapter 13. A new command, Jesus, I give you. Love one another. Now, when it says command, he's putting this into place. This is going in the bylaws of Christianity right here. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. See, when we handle burdens properly in community, we release this burdensome weight of religion, and it makes us strong and able in our faith. And Paul again writes to the Church of Rome. This is the Message paraphrasing of this. I like this. Those of us believers who are strong and able in the faith. We as those people, we need to step in and lend a hand to those who falter. Not just do what is most convenient for us. And then I love this phrase. Strength is for service, not status. That'll preach, somebody else could preach it, but strength in your faith, strength in your walk with God. Strength is not about your status. Strength is given to those who are willing to be used for service. Again, God's not trying to reward people. He's trying to entrust people. And if he can strengthen someone who's busy serving other people, he's going to keep strengthening them.
All right.
Each one of us needs to look after the good of the people around us. And this is what we need to ask ourselves. How can I help? How can I help? So if we're going to become strong in our faith, we must invest in encouraging others through the word and deed. Encouraging them. How do we do that? Number 2 way to kind of do that is we must allow people in. And that's so that you can encourage them, but also so they can encourage you. Again, missional communities is how we do this here. I'm not saying you have to do a missional community. I'm saying you need to find community, not friends. And you're like, what does that even mean? I'm going to tell you right now, community and friends are 2 different things. Friends are people that you met in high school and you probably still don't know. Community is people who maybe you're like, they don't do the same things I do, but man, they have a kingdom in common. They love me and my family dearly. And listen, like I would go over to do anything for them. Now, sometimes your community is your friends. But oftentimes we try to make friends. Like we're running for like class president or something. You need friends. You need community. So I want you to find community. Proverbs 27:17. Community loves Jesus because as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens one another. There's these things called white ants in Africa. It's very similar to termites, but way more aggressive. And they'll build houses, and these things live under the ground, and there's no detecting them. And when they live on the ground, under the ground, those white ants, eventually, once they build a house, begin to burrow themselves up the columns that have been built. And they're so good at this that when you look at the outside of the home, it looks fine. But literally all it takes is someone to push their finger on the outside and the whole thing would collapse because it's eating the inside. Can I tell you that will never, okay, I'm going to talk about the church, but again, you can apply this to your life, right? Unless we allow people inside, then it'll always just be a facade. Unless we let people see that which is within us, then we will never actually have anything healthy in there, and no one will ever examine us. As a church, you need to know this about us. Like we are all about, like you are not just part of the family, you're not like uncles and aunts, like you are close-knit family, like you are part of who we are. And so what we want to be is people who not just look good on the outside, but one who's allowed others to strengthen us inside, encouragement. Which means, number 3, we have to put pride aside. When we started missional communities, just to say this, can I tell you the most thing I had said, and I get this, you're going to say this is me. We hold them in homes. Someone said, I don't want to do it because I don't want people to see my house. I get that. But you've never seen a preacher's house either, huh? Right? I got 2 kids, man. Like we don't do paint, we do crayons on the walls everywhere. Like it doesn't matter. There's something about us, we just don't want people to see us, right? Hey, can I talk to guys for a second? The reason you don't pray with your wife is a pride issue. They know you at your worst. I get it. When you stand there to pray with them, you feel like a fraud. I get it. I do. But pride will get in the way of God doing an amazing work, not just in our church, but in your family, in our cities. Like there's nothing that our families need more than you. Men and women and children. Like if any of these pieces move out of the picture, then all of a sudden we find ourselves in a place where we're in desperate need. When God has said, I've given you the solution, and it's to be one who puts pride aside, allows people to encourage them, that you become an encourager, and you let people in. Let people in. All right, so Proverbs 29:23, a man's pride will bring him low, but a humble spirit will obtain honor. And then the 4th thing with this is you have to realize if you're going to be in community, you're going to invest in encouragement, that burdens doesn't make you a burden. Some of y'all don't want to open up with people because you're like, you know what? They got enough on their plate. I have a missionary friend in Bulgaria, one of our missionaries, and he would always pray for me. I'd always ask, how can I pray for you, Dinko? And Dinko would say, oh, no, I'm good. I'm just praying for y'all. And eventually I looked at Dinko and I said, Dinko, he said, you already have enough. I said, your burden does not make you a burden. And we have to know about that about each other. We must realize that we're not actually burdening others, but instead, can I tell you the opposite? You're actually giving others the opportunity to fulfill the law of Christ.
All right.
And if you don't allow others to help shoulder your burdens, then you're actually removing the opportunity for them to actually fulfill what God has them to, right? Romans 12:12. This is what it says about believers. It says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Like as believers together, listen, we come together and we're going to celebrate together. And we're also going to go through afflictions together. And we're never going to stop being in prayer together. So again, number one, invest through encouragement. 1 Thessalonians, last passage for this. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. I want you to know, I think you're doing a good job of this. I think you're encouragers. But God's told us to invest this year, and I think we need to invest in encouragement. The second thing we need to invest in is equipping, right? Rescue the lost, encourage the bound, equip them all. Equip them all. At Collectivist, just for our family, the first step to see this through is the serve team. We are helping equip people within this church through our service to them and to pull them in. So that's just here. But also it's a discipleship issue. And we see that in 2022 is going to be a big discipleship year for us. And discipleship happens with intentional discipleship groups and people and pouring into people. It doesn't happen on Sunday morning. But it's about equipping people. Jesus gave us a very clear call. Matthew 28 might be the clearest thing Jesus ever said, in my opinion. Therefore, go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then he says, and teach them, equip them to obey everything I've commanded you. Surely I am with you always to the ends of the earth. You know, think about this for a second. Again, this is not a bash or anything else. But the church model over the past 20 years has been a very clear model. I've been a part of it. I've helped with it. I think it's worked in many ways. And this has been the model. It's a big funnel. Found a big funnel. I'll bring it up here. It's a wide end at the top. And we're going to pile as many people in. And we're going to try it with our hardest, which is good. We should, to reach those people. But then it's this funnel concept of where we go from that. And then hopefully when we get to the bottom, we'll split out a few disciples. And it works. It does. But I tell you, the most effective way to get disciples is not to make a church. But the most effective way to get a church is to make disciples. And so if we reverse that, which Jesus did, and said, no, we still want wide in here. Like we still want as many people as we can to come in. We don't want the funnel to funnel down. We want it to multiply. We want to start with making disciples and then them going into all of the nations. And as they go, doing the same. Multiplication, not subtraction. Subtraction is a lot of people and we get a few at the end. Multiplication is we take whoever God entrusts us to, we're faithful with it. And by the way, he's not paying us back or rewarding us. He's just trying to find some people he can trust. And then he's letting us go and multiply. And then number 3, invest for evangelism. Evangelism, that's that rescue the lost for us. And so for us, we say rescue the lost, encourage the bound, equip them all. I've told our church this, y'all know this, you know me. If you read my journals, you might think I'm a crazy person. Like when I die, don't publish my journals, okay? Like everybody, that dude was crazy. Like I journal a lot, it doesn't make sense sometimes. I go back and read all the time, I'm like, what am I even talking about? I don't even understand. And I don't do a good job of completing my sentences in journals, so I'll be like, apples, grapefruit, fence gate. I'm like, what does that even mean? What am I going to do? Standing outside with apples and fence gates. I don't know. But I was looking back at my notes before we started this today. And I saw the first draft of our mission statement. And it wasn't rescue the lost, encourage the bound, equip them all. It was actually this. It was rescue the lost, revive the dead, restore the weary. Which I like. Sounds good. Sounds great. But I remember, I kind of went back in my mind, why I didn't do that. Because that was a subsection of the first one to rescue the lost. So when we say to invest in evangelism, we mean to rescue the lost, which also means to revive the dead. What does that mean? Those who feel dead in their sin, far from God, as if life eternal is not a reality in heaven, and if life on earth seems like a dread every day. We believe that God has come to revive their life, and the power of Jesus to do that. We also mean it restores the weary, that salvation is for life eternal, but it also is for today. And God is saying, if you're tired, worn out, burnt out on religion, Matthew 11:28, come to me and I will give you rest. He wants to restore those. 1 Corinthians 19, that's what Paul says. Though I am free and belong to no one. He's saying, I'm not a slave. I'm not calling myself Jew, Gentile here. I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I've decided to I've made myself a slave to everyone. Why? Because I want to win as many as possible. He's saying, I invest my life so that my faith can grow. Every And by the way, you should know this. This is true. I believe this. And some of y'all are going to say, yeah, that's you. You're a preacher. You can do that. Every conversation you've ever had has been an opportunity to sow seeds of the gospel. I'm not talking about that weird Jesus guy way. I'm saying it simply this way. Every person you encounter either walks away and says they added value to my life or they took value away from my life. Every conversation. And Collectivist Church, as Main Street opens up and we get restaurants and as our city continues to grow, it will never be the church that when we let out and everybody goes to lunch, that the waiters and waitresses try to hide from us. But instead they want to be at their table because they know we're big, generous investors and that we add value to people. I used to work in the waiting industry and in the service, food service, and Sunday mornings was like the most dreadful time ever. It was. That's sad. Sad. Like angry people, stingy people, like I can't even tell you. And I remember waiting tables. I moved to Birmingham, Alabama to be in ministry. I moved up here for a part-time youth pastor job, not knowing how little money I was getting and how I couldn't survive. So I worked at Johnny Ray's Barbecue, and I was there because I believed in the church. And every Sunday when people came in from the church, I believed in a little less and a little less. And that'll never, not on my watch, it'll never be us. 1 Corinthians 9:22, to the weak, I became weak. Why? So that we're the weak. To become all things to all people, so that by all means I might save some. So why does God want us to know this? Because faith does journals, okay? Like everybody, that dude was crazy. Like I journal a lot. It doesn't make sense sometimes. I go back and read all the time. I'm like, what am I even talking about? I don't even understand. And I don't do a good job of completing my sentences in journals, so I'll be like, apples, grapefruit, fence cake. I'm like, what does that even mean? What am I going to do? Standing outside with apples and fence cakes. I don't know. But I was looking back at my notes before we started this today. And I saw the first draft of our mission statement. And it wasn't rescue the lost, encourage the found, move on. It was actually this. It was rescue the lost, revive the dead, restore the weary. Which I like. Sounds good. Sounds great. But I remember, I kind of went back in my mind, why I didn't do that. Because that was a subsection of the first one to rescue the lost. So when we say to invest in evangelism, we mean to rescue the lost, which also means to revive the dead. What does that mean? Those who feel dead in their sin, far from God, as if life eternal is not a reality in heaven, and if life on earth seems like a dread every day. We believe that God has come to revive their life, and the power of Jesus to do that. We also mean it restores the weary, that salvation is for life eternal, but it also is for today. And God is saying, if you're tired, worn out, burnt out on religion, Matthew 11:28, come to me and I will give you rest. He wants to restore those. 1 Corinthians 19, that's what Paul says. Though I am free and belong to no one. He's saying I'm not a slave. I'm not calling myself Jew, Gentile here. I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I've decided to I've made myself a slave to everyone. Why? Because I want to win as many as possible. He's saying if I invest my life so that my faith can grow. And by the way, you should know this. This is true. I believe this. And some of y'all are going to say, yeah, that's you. You're a preacher. You can do that. Every conversation you've ever had has been an opportunity to sow seeds of the gospel. I'm not talking about that weird Jesus guy way. I'm saying it simply this way. Every person you encounter either walks away and says they added value to my life or they took value away from my life. Every conversation. And Collectivist Church, as Main Street opens up and we get restaurants and as our city continues to grow, it will never be the church that when we let out and everybody goes to lunch, that the waiters and waitresses try to hide from us. But instead they want to be at their table because they know we're big, generous investors and that we add value to people. I used to work in the waiting industry and in the service, food service, and Sunday mornings was like the most dreadful time ever. It was. That's sad. Sad. Like angry people, stingy people, like I can't even tell you. And I remember waiting tables. I moved to Birmingham, Alabama to be in ministry. I moved up here for a part-time youth pastor job, not knowing how little money I was getting and how I couldn't survive. So I worked at Johnny Ray's Barbecue, and I was there because I believed in the church. And every Sunday when people came in from the church, I believed in a little less and a little less. And that'll never, not on my watch, it'll never be us. 1 Corinthians 9:22, to the weak, I became weak. Why? So that we're the weak. To become all things to all people, so that by all means I might save some. So why does God want us to know this? Because faith doesn't grow without investment. It doesn't. Galatians 6:9, let us not become weary and doing good for the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. What we say at Collectors Church is, if we don't quit, we win. This isn't about our talents. This isn't about our capacity. This is about faithfulness to not quit. Like, we're not done until everyone is won. We don't quit. If we don't, we win. And what does God want us to do? How does he want us to do this? Number one, invest generously. Like, however you invest, if it's in your family, if it's into your church, if it's into whatever it is, all these things we've said, if it's encouraging others, if it's equipping others, if it's evangelism, don't do it a little, do it generously, because the amount of your investment will always determine the amount of your return. Always. Always. 5 talents, got 5 more talents. 2 talents, got 2 more talents. Very talents, got nothing. Be generous where you invest. I believe in the local church with all my heart. I believe in what we're doing as a local church more than I ever have before. I walked around this place, just to be honest with you, in tears this week, looking at what God has done in a very short amount of time. Very short amount of time. And I'm thinking, I believe in this. And I placed my bets on it in a lot of ways. But now I'm tired of placing bets. I'm ready to invest. Proverbs 11:24, the world, look at this. This will change your mind. The world of the generous gets larger and larger. But the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. Investment is part of good stewardship. It's like a test. You all hate tests. I know, I hated tests too. And you always thought the teachers hated you when they gave you a test. They didn't hate you. Well, some of them did. But not because of the test. The test was to actually see what you had learned and to see if you were ready for what was next. That's all a test is. A test isn't an attempt to fail you. A test is an attempt to let you move to the next space, but then it would be more cruel to let you pass to the next area when you didn't have actually the other understood, and that you would fail if you would pass that test. So God, you see this, right? You're like, oh man, I just can't sit there when I feel tested. Can I tell you, maybe it's just an opportunity to see, I want to give them more, but I don't want to give them the more that will break them, so I want to give them the more, and when they are faithful with what I've given them, then I'm going to put them over more. Not because I want to reward them, not because I want to reward them, but because I want them to spread it into all of the world. I can trust them. What does God want you to do? Invest generously and invest intentionally. Intentionally. This solidifies your family. When I say intentionally, I think number one place you should invest is your family. More than anything else. We're going to have a leadership team. I'm about to speak out of turn a little bit. Me and the leadership team meet today, and we'll approve our 2022 calendar. And y'all, there's so much good stuff. So much good stuff. I'm going to say this out loud. They're probably going to approve it today. If they don't, we'll look at it one day. But like this year, we want to do a one-day conference called Family First. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to offer it for our community, for our church, for other churches, what it means to invest in our family first. And that's important. But invest intentionally in whatever way you do. Do it while considering it. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived, right? Don't be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. So be intentional with what you sow. And then last, I think that all of us this year need to invest personally. Invest personally. Maximize your personal faith. For the kingdom contribution will be directly related to your walk with Jesus. Our impact will be made greater and greater for the kingdom when the kingdom has impacted the people who call this home. James 2:19, but someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith, James says, apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. So what will be the results? Last thing, I think your faith will grow. And I think you're here, I think our faith will spread. I think your faith will grow and our faith will spread. God doesn't need you, he wants you. God's looking for people to be faithful in what he's invested in them so he can invest in others as well. I'm going to get the worship team to come on out. Here's what I want you to write down. And this is true. Today, as you think about investing in God, I want you to know this. Write this down together. God's investment in you is so great, he decided he could not possibly abandon us. You see, if I ever saw an investment going down, and I'm tied up in that investment, I'm going to do everything I can to see that investment rise back up. And listen, God isn't betting on you. God's invested in you. 1993, March 14th. Anybody know what happened?
No.
Come on. So we have to showed our age. Some of y'all are like, what's a blizzard? I had that at Sonic last week. It was delicious. One day I was at Sonic the other day. You know when you get Sonic, they have to flip the cup over? You know what I'm talking about? My wife did not know that. Dairy Queen, whatever. Same. We got some ice cream connoisseurs in the room here. I'm proud of you. Your palate is great. That joke's not funny. I'm not going there anymore. Anyways, right. 1993, March 14th. 7-year-old boy in Prattville, Alabama. I don't even know who I'm talking about yet. It was me. 7-year-old kid, about to turn 7 on March 17th. Snow starts to fall and everything shuts down. When everything shuts down, my mom and my dad were like, listen, it's your birthday. Let's have some joy over the next couple days. The snow got kind of tired really quick when you don't have snow things, right? When you get blizzard in and your mom has wrapped you up in enough garbage bags underneath your normal winter coats, right? It's not fun. And so my mom says, why don't you go ahead and open your gifts? I said, okay. And so I began to open my gifts, and I opened early what at the time, I can't even remember, you can look it up. It's a popular robot. It was in 1993. It was like a toy robot. It was black. It had like red eyes and like a red and yellow chest thing. Don't do it right now. Do it after the service. You can look it up. I opened it and I was so excited. Now, I'm 7 years old, so there's some things I understand, some things I don't understand. But one thing that I understood, because I listen to a lot of commercials, is that when you get somebody a toy, you have to realize that batteries are not included. Right? Batteries are not included. And I opened this gift, and sure enough, there's no batteries. So we do what everybody does. We start going to the remote controls, right? And this is when there wasn't just AAA and AA, but there's like C's and D's and all this other stuff, right? And we don't have the right size battery. We don't have it in the house. And for however many days that was, I pushed around this robot, and it was my favorite toy. I loved it. It didn't even, I didn't need batteries. It was great. And then after the fact, snow melted away slowly. We went to the store, we got batteries, and when we put set batteries in this thing, my 7-year-old mind just exploded when I saw what I'd been playing with and was very content with come to life. Some of you are looking at your life, right? It's okay. I enjoy it. My family's fine. It's good. And I'm telling you, that's okay. Like, you can be thankful for what God has done. You can look back and celebrate what's gotten you here. But what if I told you your eyes would light up if your family actually came to life? Like, what if I told you, yeah, we like our city, right? It's great if they can fix the roads and get the train right? Like, if a restaurant can stay open on this side of the bridge, right? I get it. Can I tell you something? What would happen if the people who called our cities, whether it be Clear, Alabaster, Montevallo, Clanton, Jefferson, Columbiana, Alabaster, and what if the people who called that home didn't just settle for it being, okay, but realized what happened when it got a little bit of life in it? Your marriage, it's all right. I remember when the lights lit up. It's been all right. It's fine. Can you imagine 10, 15, 20, 30 years into your marriage being the best marriage year of your life? It all happens. When I went and got the one thing that wasn't included. Now here's the thing about batteries. Batteries are just a shell. Inside the shells we still have lithium, if it's a lithium battery. See, investment, look at this, moves us from potential to reality. So let me end today by telling you what I see. I see cities changed with the gospel. I see, when looking into the next years, a university that is only a stone's throw away, overtaken with the gospel of Jesus Christ. I see the forgotten found. I see the family learning their role within the kingdom. I see the future that is not dim, but one that is bright. You know what I see? I see this. I see collectiveness. I do. What started as a church plant that quickly became a move of God. I see collectivist church. I see a group of people who don't just hear the word of God, but decide they want to be doers of the word of God. I see collectivists. I see people who no longer come to consume the word and to consume church, but to become contributors to their community. I see collectivist church. A church that gathers so that it can scatter, so that it can gather once again. I see collectivist church. A people who realize that our differences are many, but our kingdom that we have in common is what defines us as believers. I see collectivists, a people who are sent by God in community to the world so that we can be in it to win it. I see collectivists, a church that is fierce as lions, but is agile as zealots. Listen. I see it with all my heart. I see a church, collectivists, a people who will not stand for Satan's divisive plans, but instead we sit bold in the word of God. I see you. I see a revival that starts in the family. I see you. I see collectivists. A church who's in the world to win the world. People who will do anything to reach a few but won't stop at anything until we've won them all. I see collectivist church. That's who you are. Marriage is restored. Families restored. In an age where marriages and families are abandoned before restored. I see it. I do. I see collectivist church, a modern day expression of the early church. That's collectivist. That's what I see. I see collectivist, a move of God that can turn it all around and see the kingdom come like it is in heaven. I see you, and I see God in you. And Satan is longing to divide that and destroy that, but I'm no longer betting on you. I'm investing in you. See, our potential is limitless, but your future is yet to be determined. We're going to end with a time of worship. And the altar will be open. This is a moment, an opportunity to allow God to invest in you, and an opportunity to tell God that you will be his vessel you used to invest in the world. Before we do, I just want to read this one more time. Again, it'll be like a man who's on a journey, who called the servants and entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents. To another he gave 2 talents. And another he gave 1. The man who received the 5 went and put his money to work and got 5 more. The one who had 2 talents gave 2 more. But the man who received 1 went off and dug a hole and planted his master's talent. After a long time, the master to the servants returned to settle the accounts. The man who received 5 talents, he said, "You entrust me with 5, I got you 5 more." The master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. I've trusted you with few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come, enjoy your father's kingdom's happiness." The man who had 2 said the same. "I brought you back 2. I gave you 2. His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I have put you in charge of many things. Come, enjoy your master's happiness." And there was a man who took his investment and did not invest it. And he returned to the master and said, "I knew that you're a hard-working man. So I was afraid. So I went out and I hid it. So here's what belongs to you." The master replied, "You know I work hard, and yet you didn't invest it. My money, at least put it on deposit in a bank so that it will have some kind of return with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one that's 10 talents. Lord, those that I've invested